They say the world ended on a sunny Sunday in Sarajevo. But the truth is far crueler. The world had been dying for 20 years, dying quietly in African concentration camps, in the frozen trenches of Manchuria, in burning farms on the veldt, and in the hollow stomachs of children who never understood why the sky turned black with someone else. Smoke. By the time the Archduke's blood touched the pavement, the earth was already screaming. You just couldn't hear it yet. Welcome to Simple Historian, and I truly wish, I could tell you that this is just another history video. It isn't. This is the funeral march of the 20th century, the procession for the 20 million, who would soon be fertilizer, and for the innocents that died long before the first shell whistled over Europe in 1914. Because the world didn't fall into war suddenly. It slid into it. It sleepwalked into it. And everyone pretended not to notice. We do not begin in 1914. We begin in the 1890s. When Europe's emperors and industrial giants discovered a secret. The fastest way to silence starving workers was to give them someone else to hate. What followed was 30 years of a continent sharpening a blade it would eventually use to cut its own throat. The Industrial Revolution had already turned Europe's great cities into open wounds. In London, children crawled through coal dust so thick you could taste it in the air. Their lungs were black before their 10th birthday. In Berlin, families of 8 slept in a single sweating room, walls dripping with moisture and disease. In St. Petersburg, workers who dared strike were shot where they stood, left as warnings for anyone who thought hunger gave them a right to protest. The rich lived above this misery in palaces of stone and gold. They called it progress. They called it the march of civilization. But to the people living below, civilization felt more like a punishment. And then the riots came. Vienna burned with the fury of the workers. Paris shook with anarchists throwing bombs into polite society's cafes. The elites panicked, not because they feared losing their wealth, but because they feared losing control. So they reached for the oldest trick in the book. When the people began to fight each other, give them an enemy abroad. Give them a reason to wave flags instead of torches. Nationalism became the new religion. Children memorized songs insisting their blood was pure, their flag holier, their destiny greater. Teachers became drill sergeants. Priests preached empire. And the men who controlled this religion wore uniforms and carried maps drenched in the colors of other people's lands. The first proving ground for this new madness was Africa. Between 1884 and 1914, Europe carved up the continent the way a butcher carves a corpse. Lines were drawn on maps by men who had never set foot on the land, lines that split villages, split families, split entire peoples. But nowhere was the cruelty deeper than the Congo Free State, a private slave plantation owned by King Leopold II of Belgium. There, missing your rubber quota didn't mean a fine. It meant amputation. It meant death. Belgian officers kept baskets of severed hands, not as trophies but as bookkeeping. One photograph captured what words can't. Missionary Alice Seeley Harris took it, a man named Nasala sitting on a wooden bench, staring at the tiny hand and foot of his 5-year-old daughter, punished because he came back with 1 kilogram less rubber than demanded. The photograph still exists. Look at it when someone tells you empires meant well. Up to 10 million Congolese died in Leopold's private kingdom, worked to death, shot, starved, mutilated. Europe looked away, but the Congo was only the beginning. In German Southwest Africa, the Herero and Nama people faced something even colder. General Lothar von Trotha issued an order history would never forget. Every Herero, with or without a gun, will be shot. Survivors were chased into the Omahik Desert, where German soldiers blocked the wells. Men collapsed with cracked lips. Women carried their children until their arms gave out. Most died with dust in their throats. Those who survived long enough to reach the ocean were shipped to Shark Island, a concentration camp before the world had the word. Prisoners slept on bare ground under freezing winds. Doctors performed medical experiments, and 70% died. Shark Island was the prototype for what Europe would build again 40 years later on its own soil. But the world didn't punish Germany for it. It didn't punish Belgium. It didn't punish anyone. Instead, Europe applauded itself for bringing civilization to Africa. Then came Fashoda, a place almost no one knows, but where the world nearly ended in 1898. 120 French soldiers under Major Jean-Baptiste Marchand staggered into a forgotten mud fort on the Upper Nile after a 2-year march through jungles. swamps, and disease. They raised the French flag, barely alive but determined to hold the territory. 2 weeks later, General Herbert Kitchener arrived with 1,500 British-led troops, gunboats, and the might of an empire that claimed a quarter of the earth. For 10 days, the two sides stared at each other across 300 meters of swamp, mud, mosquitoes, fever, and rifles pointed at hearts that beat too fast. French newspapers demanded war. British newspapers spit insults. Markets collapsed. Europe held its breath. In the end, France blinked. Still bleeding from the Dreyfus affair, terrified of fighting alone, they backed down. Marchand's men wept as they lowered their flag. And Europe learned a lesson. Next time, neither side would blink. That next lesson came in South Africa, the Boer War. Britain wanted gold and diamonds, and nothing was going to stand in its way. The Boers, Dutch-descended farmers who believed themselves chosen by God, resisted fiercely. For 6 months, they humiliated the greatest empire on earth. But Britain didn't suffer humiliation well. So it changed the rules. Lord Kitchener unleashed scorched earth. Boer farmhouse after farmhouse burst into flames. Fields were torched. Wells were poisoned. Livestock were slaughtered in their thousands. Women and children, tens of thousands of them, were forced into what the British openly called concentration camps. There were no walls, just endless rows of bell tents under a merciless sky. Rations were rotten. Disease ran wild. There was no medicine, no hope. In 1901, the death rate in some camps reached 446 per thousand, higher than the Black Death. 7-year-old Lizzie Van Zyl died there. A nurse photographed her tiny, starving frame. When that image reached Britain, it broke something inside the empire. But the war continued. By the end, 27,927 Boer civilians were dead to 22,000 of them children. Another 25,000 black Africans died in camps so neglected the world still barely mentions them. And the world learned 3 brutal lessons that would define the century ahead. Starving civilians works, camps are efficient, and the press can be controlled. When the guns finally fell silent in 1902, the world had just applauded a dress rehearsal for apocalypse. And while Britain perfected starvation in the South, in the Far East, another empire had begun perfecting the art of dying in human waves. That is where the darkness continues. In the frozen wastes of Manchuria, between 1904 and 1905, 2 empires taught the world how to die in numbers that would soon seem quaint. Russia, vast, arrogant, rotting from within, had spent the 1890s pushing east like a drunk stumbling toward a cliff. Tsar Nicholas II, that weak-willed romantic who called himself autocrat of all the Russias, dreamed of Port Arthur as his Pacific jewel. He stole it from Japan after their 1895 war with China, then squatted in Manchuria after crushing the Boxer Rebellion in 1900, a peasant uprising against foreign devils that saw missionaries hacked to pieces in Beijing's streets. Japan, the rising sun forged in Meiji steel, wouldn't stand for it. They had modernized in 30 years what took Europe 3 centuries. Factories belching smoke, schools drilling discipline, an army that replaced samurai swords with Prussian bayonets. By 1904, 82% of Japan's budget fed the war machine. 400,000 troops trained to die smiling. A navy of British-built dreadnoughts that could outrun and outgun anything in Asia. The Russians? 1 million conscripts, mostly illiterate peasants who'd never seen the sea, led by officers who inherited their positions. Their Pacific fleet rusted in Port Arthur, sailors from landlocked steppes complaining their captains didn't even know their names. War came on February 8, 1904. No warning, just torpedoes in the night. Admiral Togo Heihachiro's destroyers slipped into Port Arthur harbor like assassins. Russian ships anchored outside, half alert. Officers at a ball on the flagship Petropavlovsk. Torpedoes slammed home, Palada and Retvizin crippled, Tsarevich listing like a drunk. A Russian sailor whispered, explosion. A second later, the world ended in fire and water. No ship sank, but the psychological blow was fatal. The Russians cowered in port, giving Japan the seas to land troops unmolested. At Chimopo Bay, 2 Russian warships, outgunned 10-1, charged anyway. British observer Captain Lewis Bailey. 694 men going to certain death. Bands playing, cheers returned in sorrow for their pluck. They fought until their hulls were sieves, then scuttled themselves rather than surrender. The land war was worse, a preview of the trenches to come. At the Yalu River, May 1, 1904, Japanese scouts disguised as Korean fishermen mapped Russian positions. Engineers built a bridge under fire, drawing out enemy guns for counter-battery slaughter. Then the flank attack. 12th Division crossed upstream, captured heights, poured fire into Russian columns. Captain Takemina. Soldiers chanted military songs amid smoke and bullets. Vigor unseen in training. 2,000 Russians dead or captured. Japanese lost 900. Manchuria lay open. Port Arthur's siege became legend and nightmare. General Nogi Mersuk, who had taken it in a day in 1895, now faced modern fortifications, concrete bunkers, barbed wire, machine guns, hand grenades. He ordered Nikudan, human bullets, waves of men charging straight into death. In one assault, 16,000 Japanese fell in hours. Buddhist chaplain Mamiya Aku, some missing half-bodies, heads torn, shoes filled with foot flesh, burned like blackened rotten fish. No Buddhist hell matches this cruelty. The hospitals were slaughterhouses, flies swarming wounds, gangrene turning limbs black, surgeons sawing without anesthesia. Lieutenant Sakurai Tadayoshi lost his arm. Worms in mouths or noses, 1,000 men in space for 200. Frostbite claimed more than bullets. Men froze solid in their trenches. The Russians inside fared no better. Admiral Stepan Makarov tried sorties but hit a mine. Petropavlovsk sank with 700 souls, including him. Starvation set in. Dogs and rats became rations. August 10th, Russian breakout from Port Arthur. Admiral Vitgev's 6 battleships faced Togo's 4. They danced in the Yellow Sea. Togo crossed the T, shells trading like thunder. Vitgev killed by a 12-inch round. His flagship circled helplessly. Bretwiesen charged like a mad bull, buying time. Russians limped back, doomed. Then came the Baltic Fleet's mad voyage. 18,000 miles around the world, plagued by mutinies, coal shortages, mechanical failures. Admiral Zinovy Rodsvensky called his old ships self-sinkers. They even fired on British fishing trawlers by mistake, the Doggerbank incident, nearly starting war with England. Meanwhile, on land, the Battle of Mukden, February-March 1905. 270,000 Russians versus 200,000 Japanese. General Oyama Iwao flanked again. Artillery pinned the center. Nogi's Third Army swung west. German observer Captain von Beckmann. Russian fire silenced. Japanese pressed under machine gun cover. Chaos reigned. Russians routed, burning supplies, looting vodka. Officer Anton Denikin, future white leader in the Civil War. Field littered with abandoned boxes. Panic for the first time. Japanese won, but at 25% casualties, unsustainable. They had fired more ammo than the entire Franco-Prussian War. Tsushima Strait. May 27, 1905. The Baltic Fleet's end. Togo's U-turn. Japanese broadsides versus Russian four-guns. Admiral Akiyama Senyuki. A decade of training for those 30 minutes. A decade-long war, wrote Svensky. Paint burned on steel. Upper works swept away, turrets jammed. Oslyabia sank first by gunnery alone. Survivors dashed against the keel like sea monsters. Alexander III charged, bought time. Night torpedoes finished the rest. 34 of 38 Russian ships gone. 5,000 drowned. Japanese lost 3 torpedo boats, 110 dead. Portsmouth Treaty. Russia ceded Port Arthur, half of Sakhalin, influence in Korea. No indemnity. Riots in Tokyo. Revolution in Russia. 50,000 Russian dead. 80,000 Japanese. The world called it World War Zero and learned nothing. Colonized peoples cheered. A yellow nation beat a white empire. But Europe only saw the machine guns promise. Quick, decisive wars were possible. They were wrong. Morocco, a sultanate rotting under French and Spanish thumbs. 1880 Madrid Conference promised equal trade, a lie. France pushed from Algeria. Spain from Ceuta. 1904 secret pact carved spheres. Britain nodded for Entente. Germany, unified late, Empire-Hungary, smelled exclusion. March 31, 1905. Kaiser Wilhelm lands in Tangier, declares Moroccan independence. War fever gripped Paris. Dreyfus echoes. Algeciras 1906. France and Spain won. Germany isolated, save Austria. 1911. Agadir. Sultan Abdelhafid revolted. French rescued Fez. Spain grabbed Larache. Germany sent gunboat Panther for German safety. Foreign Minister Kaiderlin Wachter. No fight, no gain. Markets crashed. French consul. We'll acquire Morocco anyhow. Lloyd George's Mansion House speech. Britain will not be ignored. Deal. French Morocco for German Congo scraps. Relations poisoned. Britain edged toward Entente. The Pig War and the Balkan Tinderbox. Serbia. Post-1903 coup, Black Hand ruled shadows. 85% of exports to Austria-Hungary. Pork lifeline. 1906. Vienna imposed tariffs to strangle Greater Serbia dreams. Arenthal. Magnetic force. Serbia compelled to customs union. Serbia pivoted. French-German deals. Tariffs fell 1908. Vienna humiliated. Then Bosnia. Occupied 1878. Ottoman nominally. Young Turk revolt, July 1908. Arenthal meets Russia's Izvolsky Straits for Bosnia? Misunderstanding, October 6th, annexation. Russia outraged. Deceived. Serbia rioted. Milovanovic. Emancipate Bosnia. Life or death struggle. Protests. Assassinations. Ferdinand. Iron Rod. Execution by shooting. Powers accepted April 1909. Ottomans paid off. Black Hand radicalized. Russia tied the Balkan fire. The stage was set for the powder keg to explode. Low music shifts to frantic Balkan drums, whispers of revenge in Serbian fading in. The darkness deepens. While Morocco's gunboats rattled sabers, Italy, the latecomer to empire, decided it was time to steal its own slice of the Ottoman corpse. Unified in 1871, Italy dreamed of reviving Rome's glory. Nuova Italia. Nationalists called it a Mediterranean empire to make the ancients proud. But France took Tunisia in 1882. Britain seized Egypt. Libya, Ottoman provinces of Tripolitania, Cyrenaica and Fezzan, was the last unclaimed jewel in North Africa. The Ottomans knew Italy's hunger and tried to feed it scraps. Economic concessions, schools, banks. But Italian diplomats like Tommaso Tittoni snarled, "Tripolitania is necessary." We waited until danger appeared. Today, it grows severe. Occupation imposes itself. Young Turks in Constantinople were divided. Revolution in 1908. Counter-coup in 1909. Yemen rebellion draining troops. Minister Sidon Bey warned, concessions increase their appetite. Italian hunger is insatiable. Prime Minister Giovanni Giolitti hesitated. Tripoli is not a poor black simpleton's territory. It's Ottoman, a great European power. But fear of French or British grabs pushed him. September 27, 1911. Ultimatum based on fabricated insults to Italian businesses. Accept occupation in 24 hours or war. Ottomans offered more concessions. Italy rejected. War declared September 29. Giolitti's announcement dripping reluctance. Forced to safeguard dignity. Military occupation the only solution. Invasion came on short notice. Military barely briefed until days before. October 3rd to 21st. 25,000 troops landed, seizing Tripoli, Tobruk, Derna, Benghazi, Homs. Initial resistance light. Ottomans outgunned. Outnumbered 5,000 regulars to Italians' horde. But the interior was a different beast. Italian maps cited Caesar. Intelligence assumed Arabs would welcome liberators from Ottoman oppression. Wrong. Ottomans withdrew beyond naval gun range, allied with Senussi tribes under Sheikh Omar al-Mukhtar. Volunteer officers snuck in. Enver Bey, Mustafa Kemal, future Ataturk, disguised as journalist. October 23, 1911. Shara Skayat ambush near Tripoli. Ottomans identified oasis weakness. Trenches through foliage for cover. 1,800 Italians of 11th Bersaglieri Regiment awoke to gunfire and barking dogs. Local Arabs attacked from rear. Saracens rose from earth on every side. Survivor Evangelista Salvatore recalled in horror. Diversionary attacks south. Main thrust hit 6 kilometers front. Italians held barely, but 21 officers and 482 men dead. 250 massacred after surrender in a cemetery. Bodies mutilated. Italian reprisal. 3 days of Mechia Oasis horror minus 4,000 Arabs executed by firing squad. Women raped, children bayoneted. British doctor Ernest Granger with Turkish Red Crescent. Injuries from small 6.5mm bullets, scarcely severe, but infected wounds sent Arabs back fighting. Jaliti escalated. 100,000 troops, Eritrean askaris, full annexation November 5th, symbolic, as Italians clung to coast. Historian Bruce Vandervoort. Annexation assured Turks would fight on. Stalemate. Ottomans couldn't expel? Italians couldn't advance without intelligence, logistics crumbling in desert heat. Guerrillas ruled, ambushes, rail sabotage. Enver. Master of the situation. Senussi force in my hands without a dime. Arab leader Farhad al-Zawi to French reporter. Patriots in bare feet and rags. If Turks abandon us, we proclaim Republic of Tripolitania. Italians inched forward. Trenches every 100 meters, one journalist. Purely imbecile. In Zara, December 4th. 15,000 Italians with naval artillery support stormed Ottoman heights. 2 columns, one bogged, defenders pulverized in open retreat. Ottomans fled 40 kilometers south, artillery abandoned. Italian press crowed victory. Neutrals noted proximity to lines. Morale plummeted. Dysentery claimed 20 daily, hospitals overflowing. Enver. Deserters say, morale low, all want peace. Air power debuted. Italian 1st Aviation Flotilla, 9 planes, 11 pilots. October 23rd. Captain Carlo Piazza's recon 1st combat flight. November 1st. First bombing Sapelli grenades on Ottoman camps. October 25th. First anti-air hit. Lieutenant Gavati. Volley so accurate, bomb erupted. Air crackled. Engine stopped. Struck by bullets. Effects minor. Recon photos invaluable. Disrupting ambush. Mapping hell. Naval escalation. January 1912. Red Sea sinks. February Beirut battle. 66 civilians dead. April Dardanelles raid. Inconclusive, Ottomans mined straits. Russia, Britain pressured reopening. Austria worried Balkan status quo. Germany pressed for Triple Alliance renewal. May 1912. Aegean Islands seized. Rhodes, Dodecanese. Bargaining counters. Admiral Calabro schemed. April 28, May 2113 Islands fallen. Minimal resistance save Rhodes. Peace talks. Russian May failure. Swiss June deadlock. Ottoman delegate. Only one word, autonomy. Italian unrest. War unpopular, 47% budget drained, desertions. July 18th, Dardanelles raid. 5 torpedo boats snuck in, spotted. Repelled, press lead, sea boiled, Italy's star shone. Giuseppe Bevioni, not present. Water boiled, air full of flames. Zenith shone Italy's star. New Ottoman government under Gazi Mukhtar Pasha negotiated amid Balkan War outbreak October 1912. Treaty October 18th. Libya, independent, under Italian sovereignty. Sultan religious head, islands returned, kept, reparations. Joy in Italy. Historian Cesare Cozza. Praise God. Old people found youth. Reality. 3,500 Italians dead, mostly disease, Ottoman parody. Libyans resisted brutally till 1932, Italian repression genocidal. For Ottomans, lost last African province, finances improved, face saved. Suffering, Libyans fled repression, Constantinople refugee offices overflowed. War's innovations, trenches, machine guns, armored cars, aerial tactics, torpedo raids minus 1,914 previews. Dardanelles objective echoed 1915. Guerrillas resisted conventional might, forcing naval, diplomatic victory. Jaliti's fear realized. Integrity of Ottoman Empire, cornerstone. Shatter it, ignite gunpowder. Italo-Turkish sparked Balkan Wars. The Balkan Wars. Neighbors become butchers. Ottoman Balkans. Multi-ethnic quilt under Sultan's fraying rule. 19th century. Uprisings, repressions. Independence wars. Russian 1877-78 victory birthed states. Berlin Congress limited gains. Macedonia Ottoman returned. Bulgarian Ivan Geshov. Crushed, injustice reversed. Borders unsatisfied. Serbia-Bulgaria War 1885, Greco-Ottoman 1897. Young Turks 1908, reform promised. But Bosnia annexation, Bulgaria independence severed ties. 1909 countercoup. New constitution, Sultan Mehmed, the Fifth Crete lost 1910. Albanian revolt, Montenegrin backed. Italy's Libya grab, powers allowed Ottoman weakening. Balkan League March 1912, Serbia-Bulgaria pact, offensive May. Greece-Montenegro joined. Russian encouragement, Ottoman lands liberated, Macedonia triple claimed. Thrace Bulgarian-Greek, Sanjak Serbian-Montenegrin, Scutari-Albanian-Kosovar mix. No clear division, Serbia-Bulgaria partial Macedonia split, disputed zone Russian arbitrated. First war, Montenegro October 8 preempt. League ultimatum. Ottoman Grand Vizier Mukhtar demobilized for peace. Young Turks warred October 16. Observers favored Ottomans. 24 million versus 10,600,000 troops, but reserves mishmash. Officers Libya trapped, 315,000 in Europe. League, 825,000 minus 350,000 Bulgarian. 230,000 Serbian, 200,000 Greek. 45,000 Montenegrin peasant conscripts, European arms, Greek navy dominant. Thrace. Bulgarians feinted Macedonia, hit Adrianople, Kirk-Kilis October 21st. 3-day rout. Ottoman Abdullah Pasha. Bad organization, rain-destroying morale. Lüleburgaz October 29. Shells starved. Bulgarian infantry artillery, 1-20,000 casualties, each. Europe's bloodiest since 1871. Chatalia November. Bulgarians stopped by resistance, cholera, logistics to 30 kilometers from Constantinople. Macedonia. Serbian Kumanovo October 23rd to 26th. Rain mud. Ottoman attack first. Serbian medic Radovic. Wounded hit again. Blood gushed, died on stretcher. Artillery triumphed. Ottoman route to south. Pursuits. Prelep, Monastir. Kosovo entered. Albanian resistance. Sanjak Pristina seized. Montenegrin ire. Greece. Thessaloniki race, Sarandaporo, Yenigi passes, city surrounded. November 8th surrender to Greeks. Bulgarian late. Mustafa Kemal, homeland Thessaloniki. Handed to enemy by Ottoman leadership who expelled me. Atrocities. All sides. British journalist. Bulgarian track. 80 miles ruined villages. Greek Prince Constantine. Muslim villages burned. Shooting at troops. Stratus Myravilis. Old Turk whispered prayers. Pulled trigger, fell, set village afire. Anguished virus. Constantinople. Muslim refugees. Blue Mosque come. Hagia Sophia Cholera Ward. British consul. Massacre, looting, torture. Creation of terror. Escape Macedonia. Powers. Warships protected Christians. Albanian independence November 28th. London armistice December 3rd. Greece continued. Conferences. Ottomans yielded Macedonia, Thessaloniki, not Edirne Thrace Islands. Young Turk coup January 1913. Nazim Pasha murdered. Edirne retake. Below-air Gallipoli February. Ottoman push failed minus 6,000 dead to 114 Bulgarian. Yanina Greek March 6th. Edirne Bulgarian Serbian March 26th. Gustav Sire. Human rags devouring bread. Envious tears. Scutari Montenegrin Serbian April 23rd. Yielded Albanian May. Treaty London May 30th. Ottoman Europe sliver. Albania Principality. Second War. Fractures. Bulgaria Thrace victorious, Macedonia lost. Romania Dobruja claimed. Silistro-Romanian May 1930. Bulgarian-Russian doubt. Serbia reneged pre-war deal. Bulgaria attacked June 29. Tsar Ferdinand's order. Government blindsided. Greeks, Serbs allied. Montenegro joined. Romania Ottomans pounced. Bulgarian chaos. Uncoordinated repulsed Bregonica Kilkis Doiran. Mayaru. Lost hope. Misery doubled. Romanian Danube Army south. Cholera hell. Dumitrescu. Men on floors vomiting. Doctors useless. Ottomans Chatalia July 12. Edirne bloodless July 23rd to 4th 0 cholera dead. Atrocities. Retreating Bulgarians attacked civilians, advancing Greek Serbs reprisals. Ibrahim. Bulgarian peasant leading donkey, embodiment of human fear. Shame in a human eye. Bulgaria collapsed. Pro-Russian government resigned. Treaties August-September. Dobruja Romanian, Macedonia partitioned, Serbia most. Bulgaria sliver, Greece Thessaloniki, Thrace Ottoman. Toll, 125,000 Ottoman soldiers dead. 65,000 Bulgarian, 36,000 Serbian, 9,500 Greek, 3,000 Montenegrin, plus cholera. Civilians, 300,000 Muslims expelled. Enver, plains watered by forefathers. Revenge on Bulgarians, Greeks, Montenegrins. Legacy, Bulgaria German-leaning. Serbia doubled, Russian pressure. Third Balkan? 1914 spark. Austria feared Serbian Adriatic port. Backed Albanian independence November 1912. Serbian, Montenegrin occupations. Pristina taken, Consul Prohaska spying. Affair forced Serbian apology, honor ceremony. January 1913. Mobilizations. Russian hawks. No recoiling. Belgian ambassador. Pacifism of emperor cannot silence court. March stand down. April Serbian Scutari withdrawal. Conrad. Risk big war or against Serbia. October 1913 ultimatum. Withdraw Albania or war. Serbs complied -1914 template. Music intensifies, urgent telegrams ticking like a bomb, whispers of war in multiple languages. The alliances hardened, the arms raced, the July crisis loomed. By 1910, Europe had become a continent of sleepless factories and sleepless generals. Germany's Schlieffen Plan, refined year after year, demanded an army of 2.1 million men by 1914. Every new dreadnought, every new Krupp 42 centimeters Big Bertha howitzer, every extra battalion was justified with the same two words, encirclement and security. Britain answered with the two-power standard, plus 60%. From 1906 to 1914, she laid down 29 dreadnoughts and battlecruisers, each one a floating city of steel that cost more than an entire African colony. Winston Churchill, First Lord of the Admiralty, told Parliament in 1912, "The British Navy is to us a necessity. To Germany, it is more in the nature of a luxury." German newspapers printed cartoons of Churchill as a bloated spider. He kept the cartoon framed in his office. France bled itself white to match Germany's army increases. The three-year law of 1913 kept every able-bodied man under the colors until he was 23. Rural villages lost their young men for 3 harvests in a row. One French mother wrote to her depute, "You have taken my only son. When will you give him back so he can bury me?" Russia, still staggering from 1905, launched the Great Military Program in 1913. 1.7 million extra rifles. 500 new aircraft, 2,000 new artillery pieces, and the promise that by 1917 she would be unbeatable. German generals read the reports and moved their mobilization timetables forward 1 year. Austria-Hungary, the sick man of Europe, tried to keep up with both Germany and Russia. In 1912, the Habsburg army was so short of modern rifles that recruits trained with broomsticks painted black. Konrad von Hetzendorf, chief of the General Staff, sent 24 letters to Archduke Franz Ferdinand in 1913 alone, begging for preventive war against Serbia before the empire collapsed. Franz Ferdinand refused, calling Konrad a lunatic who wants to set the world on fire to warm his hands. Everywhere, the cult of the offensive reigned. French Plan 17 taught officers that elan and cold steel would always triumph over machine guns. German infantry regulations still began with the sentence, "The assault is the decisive form of combat." Nobody dared tell the Kaiser that the new French 75mm field gun could fire 15 rounds a minute with deadly accuracy. By the spring of 1914, Europe had spent so much money on weapons that the only way to justify the expense was to use them. May 1914, Liman von Sanders Crisis, Part 2. German General Liman von Sanders was sent to command the Ottoman army in Constantinople. Russia saw it as a pistol aimed at the Black Sea Straits. Troops were moved, fleets alerted. War was only avoided when Liman was promoted to a meaningless inspectorate. June 1914. The Potsdam Crown Council. Kaiser Wilhelm II met his military chiefs on the 21st. Admiral Tirpitz recorded, "His Majesty said that if Russia mobilizes, we must follow at once. The sooner the better." And still the diplomats believed they could control the next crisis the way they had controlled Morocco, Bosnia, Agadir, Albania. They were wrong. Sarajevo, June 28, 1914. 10 to 15 a.m. Archduke Franz Ferdinand, heir to the Habsburg throne. and his wife Sophie rode in an open girth and stiffed touring car down the Apel Quay. They were not popular in Bosnia. The date itself was a provocation. June 28th is Vidovdan, the anniversary of the 1389 Battle of Kosovo, the Serbian National Martyrdom Day. The Archduke's visit was seen as deliberate humiliation. 7 members of Young Bosnia, trained and armed by the Black Hand, waited along the route. They were teenagers who had sworn on a skull and a dagger to kill the oppressor. The first assassin, Nedeljko Vabrnovija, threw a bomb. It bounced off the folded roof of the car and exploded under the next vehicle, wounding 20 people. Vabrnovija swallowed cyanide. It was too old, only made him vomit, and jumped into the Meljaska River, 10 centimeters deep. He was dragged out and beaten half to death by the crowd. The Archduke insisted on continuing. He wanted to visit the wounded in hospital. At 10:45 a.m., the driver took a wrong turn into Franz Ferdinand. Realizing the mistake, he stopped the car to reverse right in front of a delicatessen. 19-year-old Gavrilo Princip, who had given up and gone for a sandwich, stepped forward. He fired twice from less than 2 meters. The first bullet tore through Sophie's abdomen. The second entered Franz Ferdinand's neck, severing the jugular. Sophie collapsed into her husband's lap. He whispered, "Sophie, Sophie, don't die. Live for our children." She was already dead. The Archduke was carried to the governor's residence. At 11:30 a.m., he died without regaining consciousness. A witness heard him say, just before losing consciousness, "It is nothing. It is nothing. It was everything." The assassins were not lone madmen. They were the product of a decade of state-sponsored terrorism. Colonel Dragutin Dimitrijevic, APIS, head of Serbian military intelligence and founder of the Black Hand, personally selected the team. He supplied the Browning pistols, serial numbers filed off, the bombs, and the cyanide. He arranged their smuggling across the border with the help of Serbian customs officers. APIS believed that one spectacular assassination would force Austria to crush Serbia, which would force Russia to intervene, which would force a general European war that would destroy Austria-Hungary and create a greater Serbia. He got his war. He did not live to see his greater Serbia. He was executed by his own side in 1917, Vienna, July 5th to 6th. Kaiser Wilhelm II received the Austrian ambassador at Potsdam. He gave Austria-Hungary unconditional German support for any action against Serbia, even if it meant war with Russia. The Kaiser's own marginal notes on the Austrian letter: now or never. Serbia must be disposed of. German Chancellor Bethmann Hollweg later admitted, "We encouraged Vienna to strike without regard to the consequences." The Austrian note arrived in Belgrade at 6 p.m., July 23rd. It contained 10 demands. 2 of them violated Serbian sovereignty so blatantly that no independent state could accept them. Austria would take part in the judicial investigation inside Serbia, and Austrian officials would supervise the suppression of anti-Austrian organizations on Serbian soil. The note was deliberately worded to be rejected. Count Berchtold, Austrian foreign minister. However Serbia responds, we will say it is unsatisfactory. Serbia had 48 hours. July 25th, Serbia's reply, drafted by Prime Minister Nikola Pašić himself, accepted 8 of the 10 demands and offered arbitration on the 2 impossible ones. It was one of the most conciliatory documents ever written by a sovereign state. Vienna declared it unsatisfactory within an hour. At 6:30 p.m., the Austrian minister handed back his passports and left Belgrade. July 28th, Austria declared war. A single telegram read, to the Royal Serbian government, "War exists between Austria-Hungary and Serbia from this moment." The first shells fell on Belgrade at midnight. July 29th, Russia orders partial mobilization against Austria only. German Ambassador Portalis warns, any mobilization threatens Germany. July 30th, Tsar Nicholas and Kaiser Wilhelm exchange frantic telegrams. Nicholas caves to his generals. Full mobilization ordered at 5 p.m. July 31st. Germany demands Russia stop within 12 hours. Russia refuses. August 1, 5 p.m. Germany mobilizes and declares war on Russia. August 1st, 7 p.m. Germany sends ultimatum to France. Remain neutral even if Russia is crushed? France replies, France will act in accordance with her interests. August 3rd. Germany declares war on France and invades Belgium. August 4th, 6 a.m. Britain, bound by the 1839 treaty to protect Belgian neutrality, declares war on Germany. Sir Edward Grey, British Foreign Secretary, stands at the window of the Foreign Office as the lamps are lit in Whitehall. The lamps are going out all over Europe. We shall not see them lit again in our lifetime. The long fuse had burned for 25 years. The spark took 37 days. The world that thought it was too civilized for total war was about to learn what total war really meant. The guns of August 1914 didn't just kill 20 million people. They killed the idea that humanity was progressing towards something better. They proved that all the civilizing missions, all the imperial glories, all the nationalist anthems were just pretty wrapping paper around a box of bones. In the first month alone, the French lost 300,000 men at the Battle of the Frontiers. More than America lost in all of World War II. Plan 17 sent them charging in bright red trousers and blue coats against machine guns, firing 600 rounds a minute. A French officer at Charleroi recalled, "We advanced like parade ground soldiers. The air hummed with bullets like angry bees. Men fell around me, clutching their throats, their faces surprised. By nightfall, my regiment was a ghost." The Germans, following Schlieffen's ghost, raped and murdered their way through Belgium. At Dinant, 674 civilians, including babies, were lined up and shot for Franc-tireur resistance that never existed. A German soldier wrote in his diary, "We burned the houses one by one. The screams of the women and children were terrible, but orders are orders." Russia's millions poured into East Prussia like a human tide. At Tannenberg, Samsonov's Second Army was encircled and annihilated. 92,000 captured, 78,000 dead or wounded. Samsonov shot himself in the forest rather than face the Tsar. Austria's invasion of Serbia was a farce turned tragedy. Conrad's armies lost 227,000 men in the first 3 months, a third of their strength, to Serbian peasants with ancient rifles. A Serbian private said, "We fought for every rock, every tree." Their officers rode horses like it was a hunt. "We shot the horses first." Britain's old contemptibles, the professional BF, held at Mons and the Marne, but by November they were gone, 90% casualties. Private Frank Richards wrote, "The ground was carpeted with dead, the smell stuck in your nostrils for weeks." Civilians in occupied Belgium and northern France fared no better. 6,500 executed in the first weeks. Women gang-raped in front of their children. Towns like Louvain burned to the ground. Medieval libraries turned to ash. This was the war the crises had birthed, not glory, but a machine that ate souls. Even before the armistice, the blame game began. The Versailles Treaty, Article 231 declared, "The Allied and associated governments affirm and Germany accepts the responsibility for causing all the loss and damage." But it was never that simple. Fritz Fischer's 1961 work, Germany's Aims in the First World War, revealed Germany wanted continental hegemony. The September program demanded Belgium as a vassal, French ironfields annexed, and a Middle Europa economic bloc. Fischer argued that the July crisis was deliberate. Bateman-Hollweg provoked Russia to mobilize so Germany could claim defensive war. Critics called Fischer a national masochist. But archival documents supported his view. The Kaiser's War Council of December 1912 included Moltke saying, "War is unavoidable, and the sooner the better." Sean McMeekin's The Russian Origins of the First World War emphasized that Russia mobilized first, forcing Germany's hand. Tsar Nicholas coveted the Turkish Straits. His generals misled him about the feasibility of partial mobilization. Christopher Clark's The Sleepwalkers argued no single villain existed. Austria's ultimatum was suicidal arrogance. Serbia knew of the plot but did little. France egged on Russia. Britain dithered until it was too late. Margaret Macmillan, Niall Ferguson, and others concluded the causes were shared. Though Germany and Austria bear the heaviest responsibility, Austria wanted to crush Serbia. Germany gave the green light knowing the risks. The crises had taught them brinkmanship worked, until it didn't. The human cost was staggering. Military deaths reached 9.7 million. Civilians 10 million from starvation, disease, and genocide. The Armenian genocide of 1915 to 1923 claimed 1.5 million lives, and the Spanish flu of 1918 to 1919 killed an estimated 50 million worldwide. Economic ruin followed. Europe's GDP fell 8%, and Germany's hyperinflation gave rise to the Weimar chaos. A lost generation bore the cultural scars. Wilfred Owen wrote, "If you could hear, at every jolt, the blood come gargling from the froth-corrupted lungs, you would not tell with such high zest to children ardent for some desperate glory. The old lie, dulci et decorum est, pro patriae mori." The shadow of 1914 stretched long. Versailles birthed World War II Hitler's stab in the back, myth fed on reparations and humiliation. The Middle East inherited arbitrary Sykes-Picot borders, sowing conflicts still unresolved. Africa's colonial lines ignored tribes, leaving genocidal echoes in Rwanda and Congo. The Balkans' 20th century wars traced 1912 fault lines. Srebrenica's 8,000 deaths mirrored Sarajevo. Ukraine's trenches recall the Marne. Gaza echoes Gallipoli. Historian Jay Winter described it best: "The Great War was the matrix of the 20th century. We are still living in its shadow." In the end, the wars and crises that caused World War I weren't about archdukes or alliances. They were about human nature: greed dressed as glory, fear disguised as strength, indifference masquerading as progress. From Fashoda's standoff to Sarajevo's street corner, every step was a choice. Every choice led to the same dark place: a world where children died for maps drawn by men who never held a rifle. History doesn't repeat itself. We repeat history because we forget the screams.